How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. NFL Draft Combine currently taking place, and we've seen the focus for the Cincinnati Bengals in the first round once again get turned to the tight end position. Now, personally, it's going to take a lot of convincing. It's going to take a lot of convincing for me to say the Bengals should take a tight end in the first round. Now, obviously, it becomes a little bit easier when you say, hey, this tight end is an elite pass blocker, an elite run blocker. And when you say, hey, look at this as not just a tight end, but a 1B left tackle or a 1B right tackle, I'm like, yeah, okay, now you got my attention. Now you have my attention if you're the Cincinnati Bengals drafting a tight end in the first round. And that is why we are seeing the Darnell Washington versus Michael Mayer conversation really being had here. Darnell Washington really coming into the mix of late. Known for being more of a run blocker, a pass blocker. That's really all he did in Georgia. Only had a couple hundred receiving yards. Obviously playing alongside fellow teammate there in Bowers, who's just been a heck of a tight end for those Georgia Bulldogs as well. But you look at this guy, and you put him up against Michael Mayer, who has been really the mini Gronk and the consensus top tight end for a pretty long time, coming out of Notre Dame. And this guy, for good reason, is the consensus number one, because he's looked at as one of, if not the best, blocking tight ends in the draft. Also, a heck of a receiver. He's a big-bodied guy. He can make the contested catches, and he can just run through guys. And that big target is, again, something the Bengals would love to have on this football team in the red zone. I think you look at him, and you compare him to Washington, and you say, Washington, you really can make the argument that Washington's your guy if you want the blocker, the pure blocker. 72 times Washington was asked to purely block in pass block or purely pass block in the pass game last season. In those 72 snaps, the guy allowed zero quarterback pressures. That is very impressive and something that cannot be looked at lightly. If you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you say, hey, maybe we can't find that elite stud left tackle or right tackle in the draft that we feel confident about, but we feel really confident about this guy at tight end who can line up alongside a Jonah Williams, or if they keep Collins, a lineup alongside of Collins and really get the job done from that perspective and still have, as many have compared him to, that Mercedes Lewis-esque kind of player, that he still has the ability to kind of sneak out and catch the ball every once in a while. And that's what we're looking at if you're the Bengals. I think a lot of people say, you look at this guy's size, and this is, I'll tell you what, as a Bengals fan, I see why people fell in love with this guy and fell in love with him very quickly. Sometimes you got to make sure it's love and not lust, though. I mean, in just a couple minutes of watching this guy's like, yeah, let's have him. Why? 6'7", 6'6" and a 5, 6'6", really, 6'7". The guy has a ridiculous catch radius. And a guy with that size matchup with Joe Burrow, you can imagine what he can do in the red zone if they use him more in the pass game or use him more in general. It's a matchup nightmare. A guy that Joe Burrow would just love to throw the football to. Any guy that can be a big-bodied guy like that, can make the contested catches. That's a Joe Burrow guy if I've ever heard of one. And he can tear teams apart. I think the thing is, though, we're talking about everything this guy could do with the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, let's call it what it is. He just played on the best football program in the nation for the past couple seasons, and they were not using him in a pass game. Now, are we going to sit here and say the Bengals know something the college football Bulldogs don't know? The team that really just, again, ran roughshod on the college football NCAAF in general in the last couple seasons? That's where you have to start and think about things. We're projecting what Darnell Washington can do on this Bengals team. We're projecting he can grow into this player. While Michael Mayer there's not a projection. He's proven he can be a receiving guy. He's proven he can block in a pass game, and he's proven to be a versatile guy. And if there's one thing the Bengals love to do in the first round, if the player is there, it is you go after the versatility. I think when you stop and look at it, I think a lot of teams, it's very possible Darnell Washington falls in the second round. I think if you get this guy in the second round, if you felt like you get him in the second round, maybe the Bengals trade back. Oh yeah, jump all over it. Second or third round, yeah. Again, I love the idea that this guy can be an elite pass blocker. That's how I'm looking at him. I'm looking at this guy as a blocker. If you can get the best potential linemen in the draft. And if this guy can sneak out and catch some passes for you too. And the other thing about Washington, we can go back and forth on this all day. The other thing I love about Washington is, again, we said Mercedes Lewis as a comparison. They're like baby Gronk, Mark Andrews for Michael Mayer. Obviously, that guy's going to cost a lot of money in 4 years. A Mercedes Lewis, on the other hand, could be very cap friendly and be a very sneaky but lethal weapon for the Bengals. Darnell Washington could be. So if you want to play the long game and say, hey, this guy could stick around for, 8, 10, 12 years if he stays healthy, and say, hey, okay. On a friendly deal, you bring in Washington and you can still potentially keep Higgins and Chase. You're not going to have Higgins chasing Mayer. That's just not going to happen. There's no chance if Mayer plays the way you expect him to. But it's a game you're saying, hey, are we really going to pass up on an absolute elite stud in the first round for Washington if that's how we feel about it? No, it's not how it's going to work. You just can't. That's why you say, well, if you can get Mayer in the second, or if you can get Washington in the second round, maybe bolster up some other, the O-line, D-line, CB, whatever in the first round, you could get a couple guys here. That's good too. I love that. But I think when you stop and play the what the Bengals really want here, it's Michael Mayer. Because again, you say he's a versatile guy. He can block in the run game, he can block in the pass, and he can catch. And the Bengals, as proven with a guy like Dax Hill last season, Carmen, they like going after these versatile players that can play multiple positions and really scheme things up. Obviously, tight end, he's playing tight end only, but you're asked to block, you're asked to receive. And on a Joe Burrow-led offense that Joe Burrow has said time and time again, he loves going 5 wide. Likes to see what the defense is going to line up at 5 wide. That means there's not going to be a tight end on the line of scrimmage. And that means you want your tight end to be a weapon in the receiving game. And again, Michael Mayer has been proven time and time again, he's that weapon in the receiving game. Overall, I find it hard to believe this guy drops to the Bengals. And if you're looking at Darnell Washington late in the first, that's when you start questioning, would you be reaching for this guy? Who else is available? This is, without question, one of the most interesting, I think, drafts for the Bengals in quite some time. I know there was a Sewell versus Chase, but it wasn't like he was overpaying for one of them. Or it wasn't like he wasn't, I don't want to say he wasn't sure. It wasn't like there was question. It was two completely different players. He's going to blocker, he's going to receiver. Now you're drafting the same position, but two guys that, you're drafting on potential, drafting on proven, and drafting on their potential ability, which you have to do. You have to be able to draft on this guy's potential abilities with a size like that. I mean, you got to. Wreak absolute havoc. It's going to be a fun draft. I really don't know the direction the Bengals go at this point in time. Again, I would say you look at this guy and you say, you're going to take the number 1 or number 2 tight end off the board that can block at an elite level. Or are you going to take, say, the number 8 or number 9 offensive lineman off the board, or maybe the 8 or 9 defensive lineman off the board? That's the big question you start asking yourself. And I think that's why they went safety last year. They like thinking a couple years ahead. They like trying to grab the best available if they can. It's going to be tough. I think if Mayer's there at 28, you definitely take Mayer over Washington. I would really like to see it. It's really a stretch, but hey, if the Bengals could find a way to get either maybe a couple seconds trade back, or if they could use that first round draft pick and then trade up in the second round for Washington, that'd be the way I'd like to see it done. I'd like to see him use first round draft pick a different position. We'll see though. I'm taking Mayer over Washington if it's 28. Or you can get a guy late. Oh, you're taking Washington all day though if you can get him a little bit later, I think. Love you guys' thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.